So the next component I want to show you is an iteration over a loop. So pretty classic, very handy. And on our reference app here, I've got my hello for each over on the right with Amy Taylor, Michael Jones, Jennifer Wu. And the actual markup for this looks like so. So I have a UL, unordered list in HTML, and I want to iterate through some list items and stick them in there. So we're going to combine a couple of things here. We're going to use a template tag, which is a standard tag in HTML that represents a fragment of information, a fragment of DOM elements. And we're going to say, hey, this is essentially like an invisible box. And I'm going to take my invisible box, and I'm going to put some markup inside it, and then I'm going to rubber stamp it over and over and over for however many items I have in an array. So very popular and easy to understand concept for developers, right? I've got a template, I've got instances of that template. So the thing we're iterating over comes from our JavaScript file. So we're looking for a property called contacts or a getter called contacts. You can see here that I have a private property, no decorators on it, that's static and just has 3 people in it. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Going back.
You have a mock, but that could be pulling data from somewhere.
Of course.
Give back a list.
It could be live, right? It's decoupled, right? It's just going to go to the JavaScript file and say, hey, give me contacts wherever you got them from, whatever they look like to you. So what we're doing here is we're using directives. So this for full colon each is a directive. It's part of the Lightning Web Component programming model. And what it says is, I want you to repeat whatever element this directive is attached to. In this case, we're going to use our invisible box called a template. You can use it with other types of components, but generally you're going to want to use it on a template tag because they have sort of that invisible boundary. So we're going to loop through our contacts using this directive called for each, and then we must use it with an additional directive called for item that allows us to define which variable we're going to stick the current item in the array into to access. And then down here, pretty straightforward, I've got my contact.id, .name, .title. Now, that key equals, that's kind of curious, right? We haven't seen that in Aura. So this is part of what makes Lightning Web Components really quick. When you do something like this and you use the for each directive, there's a requirement that you key all the immediate children of that iteration. And what you're doing is putting a unique key on each one. And so when it goes to re-render, it's going to use the keys to know which ones are dirty and re-renders them selectively.
It knows which ones have been changed.
It tracks with the keys and the observable membrane that's monitoring the contacts property itself.
And it only re-renders those that have changed.
Yeah. So that's a very powerful feature, and that's similar to an Aura iteration tag, right? We had an Aura iteration. We name the collection we're going to iterate over. We name our local variable we're going to use sort of temporarily inside of our next markup that we define, and then we put our markup inside it. So this will look very similar syntax and behavior to Aura iteration.
But better performance.
Better performance. And closer to the standards, right? Because we're using a normal HTML tag here.
Right. What about the directives? Are they standards?
So the directives are custom, and they are part of the framework. They're defined in the developer guide. So if I go to the reference section of the Lightning Web Component Developer Guide, there's a section here for the template directives that are available. I've got for each, for item. They're also going to see if true, if false, which is our equivalent to the Aura if tag. And there are a few other directives we have access to.
There's nothing unusual here.
It's a pretty short list.
Right.